All right, let me try to make this video make sense. So I filmed it once, but here's the thing. It's a very simple thing to do, but it's a very complicated concept to really get. So the first thing you got to realize is that in the modern Western societies, uh, you know, the a lot of the knowledge is it's not even being hidden from you, but you're raised in a way to not look for it. You're raised in a way to even if someone gives it to you, you're not even going to believe it's real. So, um, look into. There's a book called the Kabbalion. This is all ancient wisdom and shit. And people like, how do I know it's real? Go on my Patreon, and I tell you one thing. Look, if you can. Feel free to debate me on anything. I'm not pushing a narrative. I'm looking for the truth. And I've got debates on Patreon. You can read them. You know, it's you got to realize that the the whole purpose, the people who have all the power in this world, their purpose is to keep that power. So if they told, if they explained how everything actually works, the power would be more evenly distributed. Now, um, so the way to transform negative energy into positive energy, it's alchemy. Alchemy is a real thing. Magic is real, as crazy as it sounds. Look at there's science experiments. People can do it right in front of your face. It would be magic if they didn't. It, you know, they explain it in such a way that makes it seem not special, but it is. You know what I mean? Anyways, so an alchemist can turn lead into gold. Now, that can be metaphorically or literally. I personally, I'm not an alchemist in a sense where I you can give me a block of lead and I'll transform it into gold. But the thing is that you know the best way to explain this concept is read the book The Alchemist. Now the book basically explains how you know you can turn any negative into a positive. The book is metaphorical and very clever, and it's one of the best books I ever read. But, you know, it's basically the whole point of it is turning negatives into positives. So now there's a book called The Kabbalion, written by Hermes Trismegistus. This is ancient wisdom. Uh, like I said, the knowledge is out there. It's just a matter of going and getting it. My Patreon is one spot where you can get it. But so you can look on my Patreon and find all my sources and look it up yourself. There's another way. What I do on Patreon is I break everything down and explain it. So because this is stuff I've been looking into my whole life. uh, Let me tell you something. There's a reason these celebrities and politicians are all into this occult stuff. You've seen they have these like look into them. They're all into the occult stuff. The 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 Nazis, all the occult symbolism. This shit is all real. It's but they raise you to think it's fake because they don't want you using it. So here's the thing. Now, one of the main things I learned from the Kabbalion, and I'm gonna go over the Kabbalion on Patreon at some point. One of the main things I learned is that things are not necessarily what they seem. So let's say you've got uh, happiness and sadness. In a way, it's one thing, just opposite ends of the spectrum. You got happiness and you got sadness. Now, there's everything in between. It's technically it's all really one thing, just different degrees of that thing. So you can literally take the sadness and move it along the spectrum and turn it into happiness. It's alchemy, lead and gold. You know what I mean? So, um, it's hard. It's hard to explain considering we're taught very differently. But um, now another example is learning and teaching. Those are two opposite ends of one thing. What that one thing is, I couldn't exactly tell you. There's, but I'll put it to you this way: there's other entities out there who do not come from Earth. This is going to sound crazy, but they, in their vocabulary and in their understanding, learn teaching is one thing. So when they talk now, this is one of the things I'm going over on Patreon is Ra, the Egyptian god Ra. People have communicated with Ra. Believe it, don't believe it, doesn't matter. But so when Ra is trying to talk about learning or teaching, he says learn teaching because in 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 Ra's world, those are one thing. It's not even the spectrum doesn't even exist for him. It's one thing. Learn teaching is one thing. Another example is honor responsibility. When Ra's talking about responsibility or honor, it's one thing to him. Honor responsibility. It's one thing to him. It's not separate things. So um for the most part, I try not to even bring this stuff up on YouTube. It's complicated shit. It sounds crazy. If you're not into metaphysics and abnormal, paranormal and quantum physics type things, you're gonna think, oh, this is nonsense. Well, here's the thing: you've been raised to think that way, and not for good reasons. If they can keep you in the dark, they can control you. So I'm a good example of that. They really can't control me. They can't do anything to me, really. They can take everything from me. I'm going to go out on the street and I'm going to make my money. I'm going to put up my little shelter every night. I'm going to sleep. I still got God with me. That's what really matters to me. And, so do I like poverty? No. But I've found ways to conquer it under pretty much any circumstances. Now, it's all a matter of perspective. For me, as long as I got money to eat and I got a place to sleep, I'm not. I'm doing all right. So, because I've been without both those things, and if I got those two things, things are a whole lot easier. So, now what you got to realize is whatever negative feelings you're having can be transformed into positive feelings. It's a matter of taking control and channeling that energy instead of just letting it run wild and doing whatever it's doing. You can control it, you can channel it, you can focus it, and it's actually a blessing. But it's not going to seem like a blessing if you're not controlling it. So, in modern Western societies, a lot of people have these negative energies running through them. And what they think is the remedy is to go see a doctor and get medication and, maybe try to stifle that energy. In my opinion, instead of trying to stifle that energy because it's very useful, it shouldn't just be squandered and stifled. You should channel it and use it to your advantage. And that's, you know, it's a matter of intention. It's like you got to realize that you are not just a feather being blown around in the wind. You can, you're not just a leaf floating down a river. You got arms and legs. You can swim. You can direct yourself. You have control. You have power. In this modern world, you're taught that you don't have any control or power, but really you do. You are an individuated aspect of a God himself. If you go back far enough in history, you used to be a part of God. Go on my Patreon if you want details. I mean, I've got hundreds of videos on there explaining this stuff. I can't do it in a 10, 20-minute video. But so now, here's an example. Let's say you get rejected by a girl. We've all been rejected by some hottie that we really wanted. Now, let's let's make it even worse. Let's say your girlfriend breaks up with you and instantly gets with some other dude, and that other dude is ripped and rich, and you're jealous as fuck. And you're sitting there and you have this jealous energy, this negative, defeated, depressed energy running through you. It's not a good feeling. What you can do is you can sit there feeling negative, and you can sit there feeling jealous, and you can sit there feeling helpless, or you can get your ass on the ground, do some push ups, keep working out, use that energy to fuel you like gasoline to make you ripped and turn yourself into a person who she would regret leaving. And so use that energy to get rich, use it to succeed, whatever it is you want to do in this world. Now you got the fuel to propel you there. I've done it myself. I've done impossible things. I've channeled these energies and I've used them to my advantage. I work out every single day. One of my problems is I'm a little too content nowadays. I don't have enough to be pissed off about, but I always find things to be pissed off about. But anyways, so I'll give you another example. When I first started doing stand up, I what was really propelling me to succeed was jealousy, was hate, was um, vindictiveness. I felt that a lot of people wanted me to fail, and I, I was doing it subconsciously back then. But all that negative shit I was feeling was propelling me forward and making me powerful. And when I was first doing stand up, I was a force to be reckoned with. When I look back at it now, I was nowhere near as good as I thought I was. I was pretty good, considering someone who had only been doing stand up for a couple of years. I write brilliant jokes. Not even to toot my own horn. My jokes are fucking good. Anyways, but here's the thing. I am not good on stage. I'm like a deer in the headlights on stage. But back then, it didn't even matter. I was winning competitions left and right. I was killing crowds left and right. I was fueled by this rage, and I felt like betrayed by society too. Like I had worked so hard and I lost everything, and I was just fueled by this anger and this, seeking revenge. But let me tell you something. I was also an angry, arrogant, cocky, insecure. Um, I saw everyone as a threat, and I can tell you one thing. Um, I am grateful that I didn't succeed back then because I was not on the right path. If I had succeeded back then and everything went the way I wanted it to, and I was, some rich and famous comedian, which that's what I was aiming for. Had I gotten that, I would have been a very nasty, arrogant, impossible little asshole. What ended up happening was I knew, deep down, I knew that this, I need some real experience. I can't, you know, back then I thought I was tough. When I think back on it now, I was pretending to be tough. I mean, physically, I've always, you know, I've always been pretty tough physically, mentally too. But the thing is, back then, I didn't. It wasn't based on any real experience. After being homeless for a decade or so and experiencing a whole bunch of hardships and difficult things, I realized that you're actually even tougher and more capable than you even thought you were. But here's the difference now. Now that it's based on experience and I know myself, I have self respect more than, ever before. And here's the other thing. Back then, I would try to tear down the threats. Nowadays, I don't really see much threat from anyone. Um, of course, there's people out there who can beat my ass, but what they can't do is change. They can't defeat me. You ever seen The Dark Knight with the Joker in The Dark Knight? You can kill him, you can beat him up, but you can never defeat him. That's the coolest Joker that ever existed. They'll never beat that Joker. He cannot be defeated. He doesn't want anything. What he wants is chaos. Like they give him all that money, he fucking sets it on fire. I love that Joker. The Joker movie, I gotta say, I was disappointed in that Joker. In my opinion, he's kind of a pussy. He's this emotional little, oh, they picked on me. Like the Joker from The Dark Knight, he didn't come from that background. You know, he came from a dark place. I'll put it to you that way. Um, but that's getting off topic. Anyway, so um, you got to realize that these negative feelings, they're positive feelings if you turn them into that. They're feelings. It's energy. What you do with it is up to you. That energy is a blessing. Harness it. Use it. Um, Someone on my Patreon asked me for advice on feeling lonely. Lonely. That's what triggered me to make this video because I don't really feel lonely too much nowadays. I like being alone. Um, but I have felt lonely in the past, and the way I would deal with it would be working out, reading books. One of the best books I ever read, which was at one of the loneliest times in my life, was when I read it, and it was a blessing at the time because I could really relate to the Count of Monte Cristo. And I'll give you a quick rundown because it's such a brilliant book. So, Edmond Dantes, this is in Marseille, France, in like the 1830s or something. I don't know. Whenever Napoleon got exiled. So, um, Edmund is a first mate on a merchant vessel where they sail the seas and get stuff to trade or whatever. Anyways, it's a successful boat he works on, but the captain dies. And Edmund, being first mate, is now about to become captain, which means he's about to be making a whole lot of money. He's only like 19 years old. He's about to be very rich and successful at 19, and he's also got one of the hottest girls in Versailles as his girlfriend. And there's some there once some people find out that Edmund is about to his whole life is about to just be going great, they're jealous and they're haters, and they go out of their way. They frame Edmund for conspiring to bring Napoleon back, which at this time in France, that was like one of the worst crimes anyone could commit. So Edmund ends up getting framed for that. He wasn't even doing that. Edmund wasn't paying attention to politics. He didn't know shit. Anyways, he gets framed. He gets thrown in prison, this island prison, the Chateau d'If. Uh, Horrible conditions in this prison where they send Edmund, and they put him in solitary confinement because when they're arresting him, he's so pissed off he's threatening to kill them, and he even tries to escape at some point. When they're rowing him over to the prison, he tries to jump off the boat, but they catch him, and so they see him as like a dangerous lunatic criminal when really he's so upset because he's been framed. He didn't even do nothing wrong. And the other thing is, they're not even really telling him what he did. So Edmund doesn't know what the hell is going on. He just knows that his whole life just got destroyed. The girl he was about to marry, he's going to prison for life now for something he didn't even do. And so I don't want to ruin the whole story, but I'm going to give you a quick synopsis because I related to Edmund. I felt lonely. I felt betrayed. I felt screwed over. You know? And so what Edmund does is when he's first in the prison, he's just laying there rotting and dying because he don't know what else to do. He's letting the energy just kind of destroy him. He feels he can't do anything. He's in. They put him down deep in the dungeons of this prison, all alone in a cell, and the guards don't even talk to him. He's like begging them to just talk to him. He's so lonely, and the guards don't say shit to him. They just shove his food under the door. It's not good food. They give him like rotten fish and soup and crap. Anyways, Edmund is devastated. There's like hardly any light comes into his cell, and so, but he hears this tapping on the walls, deep in the walls. He thinks he's hallucinating. He thinks he's insane at this point, but he hears this tapping, and every once in a while, and then it seems to be getting louder, and he realizes that, wait a minute, I think someone's tunneling through the walls here. Maybe one of the other prisoners is trying to escape. So Edmund starts tunneling through the wall towards the sound. Eventually, he meets up with the abbot, who is an Italian Catholic priest who has been locked up in another cell in the dungeon. You know, but the abbot was trying to tunnel out of the jail. Accidentally, he was tunneling into Edmund's cell. But anyways, they meet up because their tunnels meet, and Edmund is just happy to have contact with someone because, as far as he knew, he was never going to talk to anyone ever again. So he's just happy to. He's got a friend now, Edmund, and it's the abbot. Now the abbot, everyone who runs the Chateau d'If thinks the abbot is completely fucking insane. They think he's nuts because when they arrested the abbot, the Pope ordered the abbot arrested. I forget exactly the circumstances, but the Pope was a powerful entity back then, the Catholic Pope, and he had the abbot arrested. Now, when they arrested the abbot was telling them, "Look, I know I sound crazy. I know of a fortune. If you take me out of this prison, let's go on a boat. I'm going to take you to where the fortune is hidden, and I will give you half of it." And the guards thought he was nuts. They're like, "Tell us where it is, and we'll go get it." He's like, "Fuck no, you got to take me with you." And they're like, "You're fucking insane." So they just lock the abbot down there because they think he's nuts. But anyways, the abbot is the furthest thing from nuts. He's a fucking genius. The guy's brilliant. And the fortune is real. The abbot knows about a massive fortune hidden because the Pope was trying to steal this family's fortune. The abbot, somehow, I forget, I haven't read the story in years, but the abbot knew where the fortune was. He wouldn't tell the Pope. The Pope had him locked up in the Chateau d'If. Now, him and Edmund become very good friends, almost like a father and son. They become very tight. They start trying to tunnel out of the prison. One of the best lines in the movie is, "The abbot taught me the art of the prisoner, which is the art of making something out of nothing." The abbot made pens out of fish bones. He made tools to dig. The abbot made everything he needed in his cell with fucking nothing. He took his bed sheet and turned it into little scrolls so he could write books. The abbot is a fucking genius. Anyways, the abbot teaches Edmund pretty much everything he knows. Now Edmund is no longer this naive 19-year-old. Between him and the abbot, they figure out who framed Edmund, why, how, everything. So Edmund is now no longer this naive young kid. Years have gone by. You know, by the time Edmund knows a lot now. The abbot educated him on everything, and so the abbot has strokes occasionally. Now, I don't want to give the whole book away. You got to read the book. But so the whole point here is that Edmund takes the negative and turns it into positive in a way. But so what ends up happening, the abbot and Edmund, they work on tunneling out. Edmund ends up escaping. I don't want to give too much away. Edmund goes and finds the treasure, the fortune that the abbot told him about. Um, the abbot didn't make it, but Edmund made it. And the fortune was hidden on the island of Monte Cristo. So Edmund takes on the name the Count of Monte Cristo. So Edmund gets his hands on the fortune and he uses it to take revenge on the people who did him wrong. And it's a brilliant, amazing book. Uh, and what ended up happening was Edmund, due due to being locked up in that prison, had like night vision from being in the dark for so long. He was physically strong from working out and digging through the tunnels and all that shit. He was educated by the abbot. All this negative shit turned Edmund into a force to be reckoned with. And what Edmund does is he infiltrates high society in Paris because now he's very educated, he's very smart, he's physically strong, he's spent a few years as a pirate before he could make his way to the fortune. Edmund has turned all the negative into positive, and he's become a force in the world. And it's a brilliant book. So, um, there's a perfect example of someone turning negative into positive, and we can all do it. You can sit there and be defeated and let the negative shit just run you over, or you can focus it and channel it and use it as fuel and do impossible, amazing things and turn yourself into another Count of Monte Cristo. So, hopefully, this video makes sense. I'm gonna watch it and see if it makes sense and see if it's worth putting out. This is the second time I filmed it, and this requires. I'm not filming it again. I'm either putting this one out or the other one out. We'll see. So, anyways, but yeah, you're feeling negative, you're feeling depressed. Here's another real quick to turn depression into happiness, believe it or not. Now, my mother died a long time ago. My mother was the most important person on earth to me. Me and my mother were so close, we could literally read each other's minds. So, when my mother died, don't get me wrong, I love my father, I love my brother. But me and my mother were tight on another level. I, you know, so when my mother died, it was very shocking to me. I didn't know my mother was going to die. It happened very suddenly, and I was very sad and depressed to the point where I didn't think I'd ever be happy again. I felt like there was a hole in my soul. I'm at peace with it now. I know I'll see my mother again. Um, it, I'm not even gonna get into it, but there's no doubt in my mind that my mother still exists. And then go on my Patreon if you want details. Anyways, so what happened was maybe a week or so after my mother died, I was still very depressed. I didn't think I'd ever be happy again. I was just floating through life flatlined, like a zombie. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want anything to do with anyone. I wasn't sitting there crying, and I was more angry, and I was sad. I was sad, and I was angry. Uh, I was shocked at how the world just was so indifferent. My mother died. My entire reality shifted. One of the surprising things to me was how the world just kept going. You know, obviously, the whole world didn't know my mother, but it was a shocking thing because I felt like the whole world just shattered, and but the world just kept going on indifferent, and it was shocking to me. But anyways, so I'm sitting there in my room one day, you know, uh, and the TV is on, and some stupid, the funniest animals show comes on, and I'm not even paying it no mind. It's just sitting there in front of me. I'm just sitting there depressed. I don't remember what I was thinking. But this stupid animal show showing the stupid animals doing funny things was making me chuckle. Despite myself, I didn't want to laugh. I didn't feel good at all. I even felt guilty for laughing. I didn't feel. I felt like, you know, I didn't know if it was even okay to be laughing, but I couldn't help myself. This show was funny. The animals were doing funny things. By the end of the show, I was really into it, and I was watching it, and I was laughing. And I realized I don't care how bad you feel, you can still feel good. So, like I said before that, I didn't think I'd ever feel good or happy again. But that show showed me that you can still feel happy, even if it's just for a minute. While I was laughing, I felt good, and I realized then laughter is a very powerful thing. That's you know, this is why um, you know the comedy industry is actually very important. Like a lot of modern comedians have been subverted to push political bullshit, and so here's the thing: these greedy, ridiculous politicians need to be laughed at. Laughter is poison to fear and sadness and depression. So there's another way to transform it. If you're feeling depressed, you're feeling sad, go find something to laugh at. Watch something funny. But what I realized was how powerful laughter was. My depression my sadness at this time, my anger at this time was big. You know, I can't even convey it. Let's, just this darkness over everything. The laughter was like a light being turned on that pushed that darkness away. And the darkness came back, but I realized that eventually I'm going to feel good again. I'm going to get over it. And I did. I'm at peace with it now. I'll see my mother in the next world. Um, and so, you know, laughter is another way to to fight the negative. You know what I mean? It's a powerful thing. Laughter is such a powerful thing. Um, anyways, hopefully this video makes sense. I'm going to watch it and see. Appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for the subs, likes, comments, tips. Um, and thanks for the super chats. And yeah, I guess that's about it. If you want a response to the comment, try to get in the first 30. I appreciate every single one of you. And yeah, everybody have a good one. I'll see you on the next one.